Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order. I'd like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Metchell is absent. All others are present.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence after? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the July 12th, 2022 meeting and the agenda of the July 26th, 2022 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have no presentations on today's agenda. Staff, do you have any agenda changes you want to make?
Mr. Mayor, we have no changes to the agenda.
Council? No. We're now at consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you want to pull any of the consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards for the consent items?
We do not, sir. Thank you.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve consent.
Second.
Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions. An item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do you have any speaker cards for public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. We have two comments. The first one is from Rich Riel.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
God bless you for saying that. I've got 3 minutes to introduce myself and tell you why I'm here. My name's Rich Ryle, sometimes known as Crypto Rich. I'm opening a crypto business over in Parkway Plaza. But the reason I'm here is because I graduated from the Citadel in 1969, and I come from a line of Citadel graduates. I'm third in the line. We have a responsibility to our community if we're successful. And thank God, because I live in America, I've been successful to make America a better place. And that's why I'm here in El Cajon. I want to make America a better place, and the way to do it is to start locally. I ran for mayor of San Diego back in 1978 on two items: term limits and stopping the sale of city-owned land. Within 4 years of me running for mayor, my father and I came up with the idea that the best way to make America a better place was to stop the sale of city-owned land and term limits. And my father was prescient on term limits. So we fought for term limits, and we got San Diego to get term limits. Now I'm here in El Cajon, and I was involved with the P-bid over there. And the P-bid should have open meetings. I rented space in that building for 4 months trying to go into one of the meetings. I could never go in because I was told that this was only for property owners. And I told them, you guys are crazy. You've not heard of the Brown Act? And then I talked to Graham Mitchell. I said, how can they do this? He says, look, they're exempt from the Brown Act. I said, how do you know that? Because they told me. I said, have you asked the city attorney? He said, no. And so I called the city attorney. The city attorney told me, he says, Rich, I think that's a good question, but you can't ask me. The city manager's got to ask it. I said, okay, I understand that. I understand how city works. But I want you to know that I have sued the P-bid because they're violating the Brown Act. And the worst thing about it is this is America, and the beauty about this thing is that I'm going to win because America is all about having public officials like yourself. And God bless you. You guys do a great job, by the way. Public officials must be accountable to the public. And that means open meetings, advertised meetings, and no selective bidding. The problem with the P-bid is that everything you see went out without any public bidding. Gentlemen, thank you for I'm sorry I was going to say gentlemen and ladies, but gentlemen and people in the audience, thank you for listening to me. God bless America.
Thank you very much.
Last speaker is Wendy Provencu.
Hello, Wendy. Welcome.
Never done this before, and I'm super nervous, so please be patient with me. I've kind of been elected from a group of people in my neighborhood. We're having horrible, horrible trouble with one house in the neighborhood. I did come last week and spoke with some amazing officers in the police department. Officer Yusuf and Harris, they were wonderful. When I gave them the address on my street, one of the officers knew exactly. He said, "Oh, I've raided that house." I said, "Is there anything we can do?" I mean, the fire hydrant in the red zone in front of that house is used 47 times between Friday night and Sunday night. Cars pull up. They're there 10, 15 minutes. They run into these two trailers where people live in the driveway. They're there 10, 12 minutes. They leave. They come back. I said, "Is there anything I can do?" The officer's like, "Nope, you just need to bug us. You need to call us." I'm like, "We feel like we're calling all the time. By the time you guys get here, they're gone." And then there's issues with the property. They sent me over to you guys, City Council. I spoke with Michelle Kim. She said there's an ongoing issue there. Like I say, people live in the driveway. I know the owner died a couple years ago. It's kind of a transient house. Saturday night at like 10:47, a big truck pulls up with a trailer. They're loading just hundreds of trash bags because they don't have trash pickup. They drive away. At midnight, they come back. It's empty. We really don't want to be calling the police officers every single time we see something. And I'm just hoping there's something that we can work out so that that's not what we're doing. Last night at like 9 o'clock, a police officer drove down our street right after someone pulled up in front of the fire hydrant, and we're like, "Yes!" And he just keeps on going. I mean, literally, there's someone in the red zone in front of the fire hydrant probably 18 out of 24 hours every single day. I call about the vehicles being there. I try to give them a benefit of doubt. 7 days, I call. It takes 4 days for them to come tag it, and then we're going into weeks. So I'm just hoping there's something we can do so that we're not having to be a pain in the butt to our police officers and you guys. If there's something we can try to do, I would really appreciate it. Along with, we've got daycare. We've got an elderly lady next door who's 90. She's afraid to come out of her house. Like, it's that bad. So anyway, if there's anything that we could try to do to not have to, I was told by Michelle this morning when I called, "You just have to be a pest. Every time you see something, you need to call, you need to call, you need to call." I called the other night, and the lady's like, "Well, what's the license plate?" I'm like, "I don't know. They're out in the middle. I can't walk out there and say, 'Hey, can I get your license number off your car while you're doing this stuff in the middle of the street?" So anyway, just hoping there might be something.
Well, first off, that this has happened before, and the city has been able to help in some of these situations. I'm not going to kid you. It's not an easy process. It's a process, and certainly I'm going to have you get connected with some of the people in our administration that they can help you down that road. The first thing that you did right was to start, to come here and make us aware of these problems. And your friend who told you to call often, they're not wrong. The way in which we oftentimes, or the police department decides which areas are patrolled more than other areas have to do with the number of calls. So you get into an algorithm, and if you get into that algorithm, then there's more police presence on your street. So definitely, you and your neighbors need to keep calling. But what I want you to do is work with the staff here and start down the process. And I want you to think about coming back and regularly, every few months, let us know how things are going, what the progress is,
Okay.
and I think you're doing the right thing. I'll see if any of my other council members have any questions or comments. Gary?
Well, I would like to see this pursued vigorously, and I'll just, use all our resources to make sure that people in that neighborhood can feel safe in their homes.
Agreed.
There's some process for designating a property as a public nuisance, isn't there? That goes outside of law enforcement.
Yeah, there's some actions the city can do, but there's also some actions neighborhoods can do. The neighbors can actually sue jointly, like a civil lawsuit, and declare a property nuisance and seek for damages.
Wendy, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. As we always say, you're our eyes and ears out in the community, and we don't live on your street. The city's a small city relatively, but it's a big city, too big for us. And so, yeah, as the mayor said and the rest of the council members, please work with our staff, make sure that there's a file open and everything's being documented. Continue calling and sorry you have to go through this. What a terrible experience.
I just didn't want to feel like a pest. I know the police. I've got a son who's a sheriff. I've got a son-in-law's CHP officer, and I know that they're crazy busy, and I don't want to be a problem on top of their other problems. But one thing that I would like to ask, when I talked with Michelle Kim, she said there was like an RPA or an RFA form that I could go online and get. I wasn't sure what that was and what it does for me.
Mr. City Manager, do you have anything?
I'm not sure. Well, Wendy, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I apologize. Preventure. We have her contact information. We'll reach out with the right staff, and we'll get you lined up.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Please
Appreciate you guys.
Please keep in touch with us and let us know what's happening. And don't worry about being a pest. That these are problems that everybody here wants to never hear about.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating living in a society that protects people's rights. Sometimes bad people with bad intentions will use that cover of rights to take away other people's rights, and that's not okay. So we got to go through the process and make sure that your rights are.
Well, it was very eye-opening when the officer at the information desk knew the address without anything. So
that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yes. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Wendy, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
No more speakers, sir.
All right. We have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 6 is for an award of bid number 004-23, El Cajon Boulevard Streetscape. I'll ask staff to tell us all about this. Hi, Mario.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. My name is Mario Sanchez, I'm the city engineer, and I'm here to talk about one of our largest projects here in the city, CIP projects. It's the El Cajon Boulevard Roundabout and Streetscape project, and it's sponsored, or we had grants sponsored by SANDAG and the San Diego River Conservancy. And to start off this whole project, the whole process, I'd like to talk about how this was started is by our approval of our transit district specific plan back in May 2018, and the community development department rezoned this whole area, about 260 acres of the transit district, and in order to increase housing and improve mobility for all modes of transportation and sustainability through beautification and street trees and drought-tolerant landscaping and new street lighting. Of that, the 300 El Cajon Boulevard is one of the projects. It's a 110-unit townhome project. That's right at the corner of El Cajon Boulevard and Johnson, right there in that triangle. So this project was started by a grant, a couple of grants. We pursued a SANDAG Smart Growth grant back in 2019. And we received $2.5 million through SANDAG, as well as the project is funded through Transnet, as well as we received a $250,000 grant through the San Diego River Conservancy, and that's for drought-tolerant street trees, stormwater features, and so forth. Here's a location of the project. It's on El Cajon Boulevard between Chamberlain Avenue and Lexington Avenue and Palm Avenue to from El Cajon Boulevard to the transit station or Marshall Avenue. And this is just shows the existing conditions of what the intersection of El Cajon Boulevard and Johnson looks like right today. As you know, it's a skewed intersection, very wide open area, which is a good candidate for a roundabout. And just wanted to highlight Palm Avenue, where we don't have any, no street trees and no street lighting and so forth. And here's our concept plan, and these kind of look like the improvement plans for the roundabout. And it's not a traditional type of roundabout. It looks like a chain link from a bicycle chain or a peanut or a dog bone. So, and it's designed to accommodate large vehicles. And when our engineers designed it, we can accommodate semi-tractor trailers and so forth. And the whole idea is to increase new trees and uplighting in this whole area. And with the roundabout, and we're going to remove the traffic signal at Johnson El Cajon Boulevard, the roundabout's much safer. Studies have shown we can reduce crashes up to 35 to 50% and lower speeds through that intersection and improve traffic circulation and travel time. It's another concept. This is a streetscape and public plazas. It's pretty much we're going to do for the frontage along El Cajon Boulevard to increase parking, make it more of a place to walk, and make it sustainable through urban tree canopy and reduce stormwater runoff. Here's a before and after. This is El Cajon Boulevard in Richfield, the southern part of the project. And this is just a concept of what it's going to look like, hopefully after the project. This is a project timeline, a recommendation. We opened bids back on June 28th. We advertised back in May. And we're going to award this project to Tri Group Construction and Development out of San Diego for $6.2 million. Our cost estimate for the project was $7.6 million, and construction's going to hopefully start in the fall and be completed late spring in 2023. So staff recommends to approve the plans and specs for this bid number and award the project to the lowest responsive bidder, which is Tri Group. With that, I can field any questions.
Thanks, Maria. Questions for Maria? Steve?
The 35% reduction in traffic accidents, is that an industry average, or is that of those in El Cajon?
That's an FHWA. It's a statewide average. Caltrans, they assemble accident statistics throughout the nation, and they assemble this information, and this is an FHWA type of study that they do.
I think there's a couple of roundabouts already existing in El Cajon, aren't there?
Yeah, there's at West Main Street and Murray Drive, and that's the only one that I'm aware of.
Okay, and have you had any problems with accidents at that roundabout?
No, not really. The only type of accidents are just low speed and people failing to yield. So that's the drawback. If people understand the traffic rules and laws, it would work much better than a traffic light. So
the actual occurrence in El Cajon is as good as or better than the national average?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fair to ask. The contract, is it a fixed price
It's
or
a fixed
lump sum?
price. It's a fixed price lump sum.
So that's it. Okay, good. So no increases there.
Unless there's a change order or some, we built in a contingency for change orders.
Of course, as long as it's to the specs of the contract, the price won't change.
Yes.
That's a great job by Public Works to lock this in a time of heavy inflation and shortage of resources. Good job.
And I'd like to thank Sanan Kachi, our associate engineer, and our purchasing staff to help to assemble the bid and so forth.
Thanks for the presentation. Fantastic. Quick question regarding the landscape design of the actual dog bone or peanut or whatever you call it.
Chain, bicycle chain.
Bicycle chain, yeah. Is there any landscape designs we can implement to discourage people in camping there?
Yeah, that's the intent of the actual design is we won't see until we construct it, and then it'd be, low, drought-tolerant landscaping, low growing, and nothing that we try to decrease, crime or congregation and so forth.
I would say that'd be a big priority for myself when we start speaking to designers. We have this beautiful, $6 million project, and the last thing we want is, it to be another area for people to take over. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mario, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any public comments about this?
No comments, sir.
Okay. Let me just see. All right. Council, have any questions of staff, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the plans and award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder, Tri-Group Construction and Development.
I'll second.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right. Next is a mid-year update on homeless programs, and staff will tell us about this. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Jose Dorado, the Housing Manager with the Community Development Division, and today we're providing a mid-year report on homeless programs. Dayanilla Pelayo, Housing Specialist, is here to present today's update.
What was your first name again?
Hello, good afternoon. My first name is Dayanira, but you can call me Yanni. Yanni. You can call me Yanni. That's easier.
Or Yanni?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor, Council members, city staff, and the public. Like Jose said, today I'll be reporting on the mid-year update on the homeless programs and activities that the city engages in to address homelessness. The report today covers 2.5 years from January 2020 to June 2022. Since January 2020, the city has allocated a total of $2.9 million. This is using low and moderate income housing, CDBG CARES Act fund, and some of the general fund for the various programs listed on this slide. On April 26th of this year, City Council approved the Fourth Amendment to the fiscal year 1920 CDBG Action Plan. This amendment allowed unused funds from the Rental and Utility Assistance Program and the Emergency Motel Stays Program to be reallocated to Emergency Shelter Program and the Outreach Support Services Program. This reallocation totaled to $230,691. This means that there was an increase in funding for East County Transitional Living Center for the Emergency Shelter Program with a new allocation of $660,984. Homestar also received an increase in funding in the result of the amendment for the Outreach Support Services Program, which is a new program for a total of $155,000. Other large allocations that were approved in the past 2.5 years include the city's funding towards the El Cajon Homeless Outreach Program for $400,000, the city's one-time allocation of $434,104 for the Rental and Utility Assistance Program. This rental and utility assistance program was concluded when the County of San Diego began its own emergency rental assistance program back in March of 2021 using state and the U.S. Treasury allocations. The city also funded the emergency scatter site motel program with an allocation of $400,000 and the acquisition and or rehab of a facility with an allocation of $299,307. In addition, like mentioned, the general fund does support the Quality of Life team and the East County Homeless Task Force. The exact allocation from January 2020 to June 2022 is $2,902,215. The table shown is for the expenditures and results for each of these programs. In total, over $2.1 million have been spent for homeless services and housing in the past 2.5 years. During that time, a total of 3,536 individuals have been assisted, and out of that total, 848 individuals have been permanently housed through these programs. That is about a 15% increase of permanently housed individuals since our last update in January, so about 6 months ago. This chart for permanent housing connections shows what the past 5 years have looked like for two of the city's programs, which is a Way Back Home program and El Cajon Housing Connections program. This provides the number of permanently housed individuals between both of them. As you can see, that number increased from 39 permanently housed to 87 during the last 6 months. This is about a 123% increase. So together, these two programs have assisted a total of 319 into permanent housing. As a result today of the data provided, staff recommends the following. To continue the El Cajon Homeless Outreach Program and the A Way Back Home program, continue emergency shelter, rotational shelter, emergency scatter site motel, and the outreach support services program. Continue working with neighboring jurisdictions, including the county, on a regional approach to address homelessness in East County. Continue homeless outreach events and the enhanced neighborhood quality of life team efforts. And consider whether to continue support for East County Homeless Task Force. Lastly, here is a snapshot of the new allocations that have been approved by City Council for the fiscal year 22-23 budget. These allocations will be reported on in the next 6-month report, and they are able to be used starting July 1st, 2022. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Staff does welcome council's feedback, and we are prepared to answer any questions or address any comments. I would also like to add that staff from ECTLC and Homestart is available today as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice presentation. Let me see if there's any questions for you from the council. Steve? Okay.
Can we go back a couple of slides to the one that had the 3,536? That one right there. So I could see the public asking a question, hey, we have helped 3,536 people experiencing homelessness in the past 2.5 years. And the point in time count says, well, geez, El Cajon only has 400 to 800 people on the streets of El Cajon. How in the world did we end up with 3,500? Is it possible that there are people coming into El Cajon who are being served, such as does ECTLC serve people who were not on the streets of El Cajon but in other communities? How do we get so far up to 3,536 when we only have 400 to 800 homeless at any time?
That is a possibility. So the way that we do our reporting is that we request for our agencies to take in residents of El Cajon that are homeless. But in order to qualify as a resident, I believe you only have to be homeless here for at least a day. So, we would have to count it towards El Cajon.
So I had a conversation with Pastor Slade a couple weeks ago, and he said there is a service provider here in town who provides service outside of El Cajon in different parts of downtown San Diego, perhaps, or other communities, but that all of those people get counted as El Cajon because their headquarters is in El Cajon. And this is a concern because that's they were homeless somewhere else, but they were counted as being, that's why our numbers shot up so high, he said recently. How do we get accurate numbers?
Well, let me Jim, I've not heard that before, so I'd like to know more about that at some point. But remember, the point in time count, I'm just going to say it, the point in time count is a HUD mandated requirement and has almost zero value, but our newspapers and us elected officials and staff, we hang on to those numbers like they mean everything, but it means very little actually. The reality is the homeless population is changing almost every single day. And so what our count looks like today may look dramatically different 2 days from now. And so there's always going to be that fluctuation. But Mr. Goebel, you're exactly right. It's very difficult to know who our quote-unquote population is. Were the people that were served in El Cajon with El Cajon money, were those people living on the streets in El Cajon that very day? That I don't know if we know. Maybe our housing staff has a better insight. But I think I would divorce some of our numbers with the homeless count because I just don't know how useful that connection is.
Yeah, I agree. That point-in-time count, as reported for January this year, showed a reduction of unhoused people by 185 or something like that, and that was good news. But it showed our sheltered population going up by 300 or so. And I thought, where do we get 300 more beds? And the conversation was some of those beds were outside of El Cajon, but because of the service providers in El Cajon, they got attributed to El Cajon.
That's correct, because if the voucher was issued in El Cajon at a county facility and they went to Chula Vista at a motel there, it actually counted as a sheltered person in El Cajon. The other challenge is, frankly, it's where the volunteers show up. So if Encinitas, for example, has very few volunteers for their point-in-time count, miraculously they're going to have less numbers because there's less people to actually go out and scouring the streets and count. So it's a very imperfect system, and the Regional Task Force on Homelessness completely recognizes it. And every time you hear a presentation, they downgrade or downplay the importance of it. But we somehow hold on to those numbers so dearly, and our reporter friends love those numbers too. But it's the only numbers they have, so I get it.
Yeah, I guess where I'm going with is if we're spending 2.1 or millions of dollars, the people of El Cajon want to know those dollars are getting spent in this community for people experiencing homelessness in this community, not for people in other parts of the county. And I think that's the concern in the counts in some of the numbers. What is extremely positive is the effectiveness of all of our partners. As you look up on the list there, when you look at cost per person, it's a bargain in terms of the effectiveness. I wish the county could come down here and just listen for an hour to see how well our partners are doing in helping people off the streets. Those are my comments and concerns about the numbers.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else? You mentioned something about the East County Homeless Task Force, whether or not we were going to continue working with them. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can you kind of explain that to me?
So as part of the staff report, I believe I put a brief report on the East County Task Force that they are taking more of a political view recently. So it was a recommendation for City Council to consider to continue supporting them.
All right. Graham, I'm going to punt that to you after we're done.
Well, I can elaborate a little bit too.
Yeah, please.
It's not a big dollar amount. So if it were more than that, I would probably have a stronger recommendation. I think staff is pretty neutral one way or the other, whether the council continues to support the organization. I think it has lost its effectiveness over the last couple of years, and I think because it's done what it needed to do. Its initial intent was to get all the different parties in East County, the different governments and the business sector and the homeless advocates all kind of talking to each other. And that's kind of happened. I mean, the cities collaborate more than we've ever have before. In fact, we relied on them initially to be the conduit for communication. I don't use the East County Homeless Task Force to communicate with my colleagues in other cities at this point. So there's probably not a lot of value there, but it is a good organization to vet ideas through, to socialize concepts, to set up more community discussions. So are we getting $5,000 worth? It's hard to say because unlike our other programs where we have a hard physical deliverable, like X number of people were housed, we can't say that for the East County Homeless Task Force, but that's not what their intent is. So that is a bit of our challenge, but we wanted to put that out there because we have continued to support it over the last couple of years. We were the first city to do so. And I think it's fair to question, is this something the council wants to continue to do?
Are the other cities supporting them?
Last I heard they were, but to what level, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody more questions for our presenters? Yeah.
Do we know, with regard to the East County Homeless Task Force, do we know what kind of projects they have completed or they're a part of or that they're assisting in? Do we have a beat on that?
So they do host a monthly meeting. It's been remote by Zoom lately where they talk about homeless issues. They helped organize a community forum about homelessness in Lemon Grove. They were able to secure Supervisor Fletcher to come and speak to that group and hosted that community group. They help organize the point in time count with volunteers. Again, they kind of vet ideas. Theoretically, they're sort of the planning agency for East County, but I don't know how much planning or implementation occurs from that planning.
Okay, that's helpful. And then I remember when the genesis of the group, it was a place where we could tell the public if they wanted to volunteer or get more involved or get more information, kind of a hub to go to there, but they're not holding public meetings. They're all Zoom. So can the public still go, do we know? Or?
Initially, the way it was initially organized, and I'm not saying that it should be this way because I think it needed to be that way at the time. How it should be organized today, that's not my opinion. But there were these different working groups, and they were sort of self-directed. And so people that were really interested in shelter, there was a group, people could volunteer, and they got together and they talked about shelter. And there was a group that got together and talked about outreach, and a group that got together and talked about just data or marketing. Those have sort of all gone away. I know there are still some working groups, but I'm on the steering committee, and to be honest, I don't really know what we're doing, and so that's more me than them. But there's not really. There was a time when people would come and complain to the city about X, Y, or Z, homeless, and we could say, go to a meeting and find out more what you can do, and people did. And they rolled up their sleeves and they got involved, and a lot of people, and I don't know whether they still are today, but it was a great conduit to send people to that wanted to be actively engaged. I don't know if that's happening today.
Okay. Thank you.
The funds for this, there's CDBG Cares. Are there ARPA funds?
There's no more ARPA funds. There's no ARPA funds in this batch of programs.
So it's all CDBG related.
Or general fund.
Thank you.
Jose, did you want to say something? You came up here like you were going to.
I was going to address a comment from the council member, but I think it's been addressed by Graham.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, we finished? Hey, thanks for your presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We also have speakers.
All right. Are there any comments from the public?
Yes, sir. We have two comments. The first one is Helen Zamora.
Hi. I have never been up here before either, but Ivan is not able to come today. So I am coming to give you a report on what we're doing, the changes that we've had, and to thank you for all the help that you give us. We have opened our 2 dorms up for the single men and single women in our programs, and we have converted almost all of those rooms now that were on that single-story side to house families. So our family population has grown considerably. We have about 180 children on property right now, and probably about 300 adults. So we are working hard to help the people that we have come into our center, and we couldn't do it without your help.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Or
Okay,
Thanks, Helen.
sorry about the glasses.
Yeah, I heard the story. Did you win?
The last speaker is Laura Tancredi.
Hi, Laura. Welcome.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Wells and distinguished council members, my name is Laura Tancredi-Basie. I'm the CEO at HomeStart. This is HomeStart's 50th year of service to San Diego, and we're excited to continue to partner with the city of El Cajon. So I'm here mostly just to say thank you. We're grateful to be a part of this collaboration with the city. We know there's a lot more work to be done, and together I think there's a lot we can do. Just a small piece of data, and we could certainly provide a bigger report, is in this last year we provided 133 individuals with Flex Fund and various housing resources. And again, we know there's more to do. And I'm here to really thank each and every one of you and continue this positive collaboration for results for the people of El Cajon. Happy to answer any questions.
Let me see. Any questions, Chief?
Amicus is having the grand opening soon. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we were there. We're excited about it. Actually, Karina, our housing manager, and myself are going to go meet with Pastor Slade on Friday just to see the progress since we did that nice kickoff a while back. So we're looking forward to the partnership and helping some women who need our support and some housing through those sleeping cabins.
The electrical permit was issued a week ago, so they're going to start trenching. And the framing was approved yesterday. So now we can cover the roofs and cover the walls and things like that. So they're all painted, and all the windows have been installed and trimmed. So September 9th is the grand opening.
Fantastic. I'm excited to be there and looking forward to seeing the progress on Friday. It all sounds good. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for coming.
No more comments, sir.
Okay. So it brings it back to council. We can have a discussion about it, or somebody can make a motion. Oh, you know what? I did want to talk about what they brought up about the East County Homeless Task Force. If that's not a valuable service at this time, it doesn't sound like there's any consensus that it is. I'd rather pull that money out and put it towards something that was yielding better results. Thoughts?
I see on one slide that it's been funded through June of 2023 for another full year, so that gives us...
Did I get that wrong?
Well, you've budgeted for it. That we haven't paid them. That, I mean, it's in your budget, but you could reallocate that money with other homeless activities.
I don't have a strong feeling about it, but I just thought since they brought it up in the report, we should at least discuss it.
One of the things I was really hoping from the Homeless Task Force was to be El Cajon's advocate on the point of time count and really what were glaring questions on the accuracy of this data. And we need them to be an advocate for the city and all of East County in the accuracy of the numbers, because not only are they used for HUD calculations, but in city resources and things. So I was kind of really looking for them to really engage with the regional task force on the homeless more.
And how do you feel they did in that respect?
I think they've got a lot of opportunity to.
I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, I'll just echo my comments. I was on the Chamber of Commerce board when the Chamber was funding the East County Homeless Task Force. And when it started, it was a great, as our city manager said, it was a great way to send residents that didn't know how to get plugged in. There was a lot of nonprofits that were present that they could get plugged into. And it seemed like a lot of activity, a lot of momentum, and it seems like it's kind of died off. And so I don't know if that's possible to get that spark back for marketing and saying, hey, do you want to help any one of these dozen homeless nonprofits? But it's disappointing that there's been a lack of public involvement or as a hub for that public involvement. I don't know, maybe... Yeah, I'm kind of in. It's such a small number. Maybe we tell them,
money.
Yeah,
$5,000 not a small number to me.
Right.
I'm not rich like you, but yeah, it's
City pays a lot, you know.
Graham, if we wanted to take that money out, and then would you need to know where it went back into right away, or could we allocate that money for say East County Transitional Living Center or one of the other?
I don't think you need to allocate it now. I think it falls under my budget, so we always have opportunities to do things related to homelessness. So I
guess the question is there a way to make sure it doesn't get absorbed back into the general fund but stays in the homeless realm?
We can earmark it for some sort of homeless activity.
Well, I got to tell you that would be my recommendation. I think one of the problems with government is sometimes you watch a problem and you say it's not working, and we come back a year later and say, well, we really need to take a look at that, and then 3 years later say, okay, then maybe we should finally do something.
I guess I'd say we have another point in time count next January. They're kind of not here to defend themselves, so to speak, so I feel a little rough yanking the carpet from underneath them.
Okay.
I would say, hey, guys, I expect you to, between now and next January, to talk to the regional task force and to tell them what our concerns are in methodology, and this is what we expect you to advocate for when that time comes, and give them that opportunity. And
well, that's a reasonable approach.
I think there's value in $5,000 there for the people of El Cajon if they truly do help get a more accurate count.
Gary, Phil, thoughts?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Then I guess we just need a motion on the entire budget, unless somebody wanted to change another aspect of it.
I'll move that we receive the mid-year report as stated. We provided feedback, recommendations, and directions to staff.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Graham, would you please convey, though, our feelings to the East County Transitional or the Homeless Task Force?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks all of our visitors. Appreciate that. The last administrative report, item 8, is an American Rescue Plan Act General Reserve Expenditure Plan. And I'll ask our city manager to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm trying to pull up the report. Okay. This agenda item really attempts to accomplish two goals in one agenda item. One is there is some residual money left over in the American Rescue Act, or the ARPA funds, and there's also a city council action plan direction to come back at an agenda item sometime in this fiscal year to talk about the use of some general reserve expenditure. So because they have some relatability, I thought there's some value in having that discussion together. So we'll kind of be talking about both of these items at the same time. So just for some background, as you recall, ARPA, the federal government allocated different government agencies, local governments, this rescue money, and it's dependent on a lot of different formulas, but our allocation was $30.34 million. And there's a lot of parameters how that money can be spent. There's a deadline of having money committed by contract by December 31st, 2024, with projects finished and all money out the door by December 31st, 2026. There's a lot of regulatory guidelines. There's a lot of procurement rules. So it's actually not very easy money to spend, to be honest with you. It's taking more time than we thought. But our council actually has already allocated back over a year ago funding for 15 different programs through these different categories: assistance for homes and businesses, or households and businesses, our COVID-19 response or mitigation, replacing revenue, but then reinvesting that revenue back into city infrastructure, and then expanding our broadband network. I've presented a list. It's a very high-level summary of how other cities in the county have spent or have allocated their ARPA funds. A team of our interns put this together, which is really helpful. And what was interesting is I'm actually really impressed with the direction that the council's taken. I think you have spread the $30 million out over a very wide blanket that it touches a lot of people in our community. And it's not just spending money to spend money. In fact, I saw some cities spending money on increased staffing. And I don't think that's the intent of the ARPA money. It's really to be put back into the community. And all the money that the council so far has allocated or appropriated has really been to go back into the community in one way or the other. So I really like the plan that we have developed. And as one of the attachments, you'll see what the council has allocated money to in the past. Because we've finished up some programs and we're actually recommending putting on hold the social worker program until the county runs their program, I believe we have about $3 million available to reallocate. And so that's one of the things that we'll be seeking. Because of the deadline, we would recommend getting that money allocated as soon as possible. So for us, staff, it would be helpful to get some clear direction from the City Council tonight. We will bring that back in the form of a modified resolution to reallocate those monies formally, which the federal government requires at probably the next meeting or the meeting in September, and that way we can start spending these funds by the deadline. The other discussion item is the general fund. Oh, really quickly, one of the frameworks or criteria by which to spend this money that would be helpful is larger purchases. So $5,000 and $10,000 purchases are very expensive when you add in the amount of procurement hoops that have to be jumped through. So larger purchases are useful. They have to comply with the federal guidelines. It'd be useful if they support existing goals and priorities. And then ultimately, ideally, they're one-time expenditures that will have a lasting impact or a long-term impact. So capital improvement programs and projects are good examples of that. So moving on to the general reserve, we have, as you recall, after we, in the last budget, after we take the $54 million that we have set aside in reserves and you take out the $18.4 million in sort of that obligation of the 15% set or 20% set aside, and then you have the economic downturn money of another $18.4 million, and then some pension safety net money, we're left with about $6.13 million. And so I would recommend that we start thinking about how to best most strategically utilize that $6.13 million. Now, part of that could be just stay in the general reserve. It's just additional cushion. But it can also be used to support existing goals. It can be used to repair things that haven't been touched that need to be touched. We have not put money into our capital improvement program for years. We've just been sort of spending that down as we do capital projects. So we could put money into that, which will have reinvestment into the community. And again, I think there's some value in whatever money is used. It either generate revenue or results in some savings for the city. And so I'll come back and talk about that in a second. So as part of your report, we presented the existing ARPA allocation plan, what's currently there, examples from other cities. The staff report identifies 9 different suggestions. I recognize that the suggestions, if you were to fund them all at full amount, it's more than we have available. And I'll give you my sort of abbreviated recommendation. And then we haven't heard from council. So if the city council has other suggestions of projects to fund, then we should probably think about how to work those in as well. So looking at the matrix that staff provided in the staff report, in order to get to that $3 million in ARPA and use of the general reserve, staff would recommend that we replace the 2 existing AC units at 2 of the rec centers. We would recommend that we allocate $1 million for either development agreements with incoming businesses or expanding businesses, or public improvements to help support the relocation of a business in the city, or the purchase of property that can be used for economic development purposes. We would recommend that one of the goals that the council has is reducing motorist speeding, so doing some additional radar signs around the city, and the police department has identified one that they've seen some studies that are very effective. That is, it doesn't just light up your speed; it actually shows a couple other lights, so it's very eye-catching. We'd also recommend spending some money for a street camera system, which we think could be used initially to help us capture or solve crimes, but can be expanded on. It becomes sort of the backbone for a larger program if the council wanted to take that step at some point. We currently rent screens for a lot of our community events, so this would be a way to save money by buying an LED mobile screen, and it also becomes a bit of almost a mobile billboard for city events or other things that are coming up. And then lastly, we would recommend using the remainder ARPA money to fund the majority of a fire ladder truck. Our ladder truck is coming to the near end of life. They cost $1.7 million. It's a lot of money. Eventually, this will come out of the general fund to fund this. So we would recommend using ARPA money, which is an eligible expenditure under that program. We recommend using or paying for the rest of the fire or the ladder truck with general reserves. And then we would recommend the beginning of a sidewalk improvement program by hiring a consultant or a contractor through a San Diego bid that we can piggyback off that has tremendous rates right now. That would be over a 5-year period, $600,000 for a total of $3 million over that 5-year period. It would allow us to start repairing the sidewalks throughout the city, and that would allow us to slice every sidewalk that we can slice and level out throughout the city. This does not address, as the staff report identified, some of the sidewalk replacements that need to occur, but this gets rid of a lot of trip and hazard falls, should reduce our overall claims. So this has the ability to not only reinvest in our city, but it also potentially will reduce our costs that we've experienced over the last couple of years. So this plan right now really focuses on ARPA because we believe that ARPA money needs to be the number one focus, because we would not want to turn any ARPA money back to the federal government. But this allocates $3 million and then gives us an allocation of $3.4 million out of the general reserve. The remaining $2.6 million in general reserves could be, again, left in the general fund reserve. It could be allocated or put back into a CIP, overall CIP budget, or if there's other projects the council would like to fund, we could consider it for those as well. So that concludes staff's report. We're looking for some direction from the council, but ideally, if we can get some direction on ARPA more than anything tonight, that would be useful.
Great, thank you, Graham. Okay, any questions for Graham? Gary.
Graham, I want to make sure I understand this properly. So we have the $3 million in the ARPA money right now, right?
Correct. Everything that we haven't spent, we actually have in a bank account. It's not a matter of spending it and then getting reimbursed.
Okay.
I think it's just $6 million, actually.
What? I'm sorry. Are we talking about ARPA? We're talking about ARPA money or general reserves? I'm sorry.
I'm talking about ARPA. Bill,
Yes.
you had a comment?
Well, I thought that was $6 million.
Well, we have $6 million in general reserves that isn't already allocated for other purposes. But we have $30 million in ARPA money allocated to us. Everything has been allocated by the city council minus the $3 million. So we need to think about how to allocate that $3 million. But we actually possess that $30 million in our bank account.
The $3 million.
The $30 million. All $30 million, or by now it should be all $30 million should be in our account.
But just to clarify, you're asking us to give direction on the $3 million.
On the residual $3 million that's unallocated right now.
And then the $467 out of the general fund for the fire truck. In addition to, so we can pay for the entire fire truck.
That's correct. If you were to allocate ARPA money at only 1.2 million, you need to come up with another 467,000.
I think those are all really good things because public safety is a priority for city government. So we don't want to be without a fire ladder truck or come up short somehow. I think those are all really good things. So I like the plan.
Other thoughts? Sure. Question, Graham. Oh, go ahead.
I think I know the answer. All of these monies that we're designating, we've already we can't spend on any kind of homeless programming, can we?
You could use, if you wanted to build, for example, I'll just say a shelter. You could allocate $3 million to build a shelter.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend using it for contracts because those will expire at some point, and I wouldn't want to get an organization used to receiving a revenue source that won't be there.
And then cut them off.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
My question kind of goes along the same lines. The sidewalk slicing program will spend the first allocation of the $600,000 out of the ARPA money. Is that correct?
No, we would allocate the entire $3 million out of the general reserve, but would be paying it out over a 5-year period.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, any public comment?
No comments, sir.
All right, back to council. Steve, you had questions?
I don't have any questions, comments. This is a great list, and I agree with my colleagues on their comments. When we replace the AC units at the two rec centers, that makes sense because they're probably so old, they're probably very energy inefficient, and even if they work at all. Is there any talk about solar to help subsidize the ongoing electrical costs?
That's a great question. We actually ran that analysis this week. So first of all, we think the AC in the rec centers won't be used all the time. So that's one thing that's probably important. Unlike a house where we use our house AC, if you have AC in your home, we use it a lot during the summer months. For the rec centers, they're actually built to not get that hot. They're actually built in a way to take advantage of wind coming through. So they wouldn't be used a lot. Based on looking at usage where the ACs exist right now, we think it would cost an additional $8,000 per year in electrical costs, which is not a huge amount. So keep that in mind. We then looked at an analysis that we did in 2019, and these are 2019 numbers. We looked at the cost to build a facility at a rec center to pay for its electrical usage, and the payoff period is about 30 years. So it just doesn't make sense to put it there. It makes sense to put it all in one place, like the police station, for example, which is a project that you're looking at now, rather than sort of piecemeal here and there. And we don't have one rec center big enough to really accommodate a big project that could offset all the electrical.
Okay. Is the pool in need of any capital improvements?
That's a good question because I saw a lot of aquatic improvements from the other cities. I'm looking at Mr. Carson. He says no. It was, 4 years ago there were some improvements to the pool.
Okay, great. I think we're very fortunate to have this discussion to talk about what to do with $6 million in reserves and $3 million in ARPA money. A lot of cities just don't have this kind of good news right now, and that's really due to the excellence of the city staff in several years managing the expense side of things that we end up with the $6 million that we can talk about. So great job to every department in the city staff for getting us to this level, and their good work is going to result in these projects. As far as the fire ladder truck, I've never really understood why La Mesa, El Cajon, and Santee each have to have their own fire ladder truck. Maybe someday there's a discussion about perhaps Santee and or La Mesa foregoing a truck in their area and just paying a availability fee per year or something. You get into the science of how many minutes it takes for a truck to respond in La Mesa or Santee, but That's a big expense for all three cities if there was a way to make that more efficient. But certainly we could use a new truck in El Cajon, and I support that.
Add San Miguel Fire District has a ladder truck as well. So there's 4 large pieces of equipment in East County.
Well, we have a Class 1 agency, so we definitely deserve a truck because they have to have the right tools to stay a Class 1 agency.
That actually helps us get that rating.
Okay. Phil, Jared?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. These are great projects, especially the sidewalk replacement and slicing. Are they both on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're there. Yeah, slicing repair. Yeah.
I don't think replacement was part of it.
I don't think replacement is part of that's the big project.
That's
like
the $9 million one. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, I think putting money into that is fantastic. We have a lot of pedestrians, especially in the valley floor in El Cajon. I think more so than any other East County city, and so just making sure those are safe sidewalks is a great project. I noticed. I know one of our goals is the Veterans Memorial. Is that a potential ARPA funded project, or
it could be? We think that I saw some other cities had improvements to public gathering places, so I think it's probably ARPA eligible. Parks are ARPA eligible, so could be considered one of those. I think the big challenge potentially could be, is it going to be ready to be funded? And so perhaps as we move down the line and continue with the design, as more ARPA money gets freed up just because projects get finished and there's residual, that could be a source if the timing is right.
Yep.
It could be used, it can come out of the general reserve, or the CIP. If you were to allocate some of the $6 million back to the CIP, then you have a funding source specifically for those types of projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I love the idea. We got to replace those AC units. I love the development agreement. Let's get some businesses in here to widen our tax base, fire truck, whatever we can do to stop street racing, radar speed signs, and street cameras. I would prefer the street camera system over the radar signs, but whatever. If we have the money to do it, let's do it.
On that, just so you know, we have asked San Diego State. We've pitched several capstone projects to the graduate program as part of the public administration program at State. They're deciding whether right now they're going to accept them, but one of them is reimagining the mall, so they'll do some planning in that area. But the other is to do some long-term effects of these traffic notification signs. When a sign goes up, does speeding actually slow down? What happens a week later after they're gone, a month later? So we can, over a period of time, look at that. If we were to do this, I think the lead time is so long to get these in place. We would have that study in place before we would actually spend that money. And if we found some data that was damaging to the recommendation, we'd probably bring that back to the council and maybe suggest a different approach.
Yeah,
but it'd be helpful to have that money that we allocated. That way we know at least where to focus some attention right now.
Is there, I mean, obviously we have everything allocated right now, but are there other contingency projects that you guys maybe have in the back of your head in case some of these don't work out, or we start running out of time, procurement process, maybe get something on deck, so to speak, in case, and maybe that's the Veterans Memorial, I don't know what it is, maybe another park is in need of something, or I don't know, but it might be helpful to throw it there, maybe one-time use for ECTLC. They already have a program, and we say, hey, can you use an extra $20,000 because we're going to run out of it? Something on deck in case we run out of money for ARPA.
Yeah.
All right, any more questions for Graham? And I think, did we ask about public comment? I don't remember.
No comments, sir.
No comments. Okay, it's up to us then.
I'll make a motion that we approve and direct staff to fund the expenditures and allocations of project as presented on the slide before us.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Great. All right. There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda, and item 9 is my activities report. And now we're on to item 10 is a recommendation for city council assignments. And before I go on to that, let's see, Angela, did you receive any comments for this item?
No, sir, no comments.
All right, Graham, you want to tell us about this?
Certainly. Recently, Mr. Goebel was selected to be the chair of the East County Advanced Water Purification Program. He currently sits as the alternate on Metro. With his role at AWP, he's actually excluded, and as he should be, from a lot of information, including closed session items, because he would potentially be in closed session on both items. So he actually approached me and suggested that he be removed as the alternate from Metro. The mayor and I spoke and would recommend that Councilmember Mitchell be the replacement for Mr. Goebel on Metro. And if that's okay with the council, we'd recommend that action and that resolution.
Any discussion? I'll make that motion then that Michelle Mitchell be named that replacement.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right. We're at activities reports. Councilmember Goebel.
As reported for activities, a couple of other items of note. Speaking of AWP, we have an October 14th date in court against the City of San Diego, a hearing on our eminent domain action related to getting possession of the property of the East Mission Gorge Pump Station down at the bottom of 125 Mission Gorge. Myself and Executive Director Kyle Swanson have met individually with 8 of the 9 San Diego City Council members to tell our side of the story. Mr. Swanson and I have an August 5th meeting with Mayor Gloria and the COO to see if we can break through some of the logjam. We think we have a solution that addresses their concerns and objectives. As I mentioned in the homeless item, September 9th is Amicus's and Meridian Baptist Church's grand opening of their 6 emergency sleeping cabins for women. And that project is coming together very fast to a conclusion. It's going to be a great role model for other cities to try this in their communities as well. In fact, city staff received some excellent glowing comments about the forward thinking of approving 12 additional sites in the city so that should those places want to put these there, they don't have to file for any kind of a approval fee or anything like that. They're already pre-approved. So compliments to the city staff for forward thinking on that. Again, that provides a role model to other cities to do that as well. Those are the 2 great things happening, or eminent domain actually is a great thing for the 500,000 ratepayers of El Cajon. We just can't wait anymore for San Diego to decide what they think is okay. We have to move forward and protect the costs of the contract, and we deserve to deliver that for our ratepayers.
Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Ortiz. All right. There are no general information items and no first readings of ordinances on today's agenda. Item 15 is reading and adoption of an ordinance to adjust salaries of council members and the mayor. I ask our city clerk to read the title, but first, Angela, any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker card, sir.
All right. Would you then recite the title?
The title is an ordinance repealing section 2.16.020 of chapter 2.16 and adding a new section 2.16.020 of chapter 2.16 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adjusting salaries of council members and mayor effective January 1, 2023.
Thank you. Can we have a motion, please?
I'll second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right, there are no closed session items on today's agenda, and this brings us to the adjournment. The adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 26th day of July 2022, is adjourned until Tuesday, August 9th, 2022 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much.